Hi, I'm Michelle Fitzgerald with the Senzar Learning Center, and today I'm going to share with you a little bit of information about clearing past life belief codes. This is a little preview, little snippet of a longer seminar that I've recently developed on this topic called Clearing Past Life Codes. In this program, I'm going to show you one technique that's included in the bigger program that you can run with right away and start applying and clearing some of your own past life belief codes right now. Why do you want to do that? Clearing past life belief codes is very, very valuable. I consider them to be the most important codes of all to clear if you have the skills to do it. They're harder to clear than some of our other codes, like our inherited codes. It's pretty easy to get rid of those. I've got some great slick systems for that. Even clearing current life belief codes is very, very easy. But clearing past life codes it takes a variety of methods, a little more diligence, a little more know-how, and to get rid of those. You want to get rid of them because they heavily influence, especially the type or the content of the codes that you inherit from your ancestors. The good news is we don't inherit all the limited belief patterns, all the limited thought forms. That's what belief codes are. They're limited. It's limited thinking about human potential is what belief codes actually are. They'll attract limiting life experiences, limiting perceptions of ourselves, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Nothing good comes out of belief codes. I can say that from all my experience of dealing with millions of belief codes in my last 25 years of research. Nothing good comes out of belief codes. So we want to get rid of them. We want to stop paying attention to them. A huge percentage of the belief codes that we have in our inventory are inherited codes. Again, like I said, we don't attract all the limiting beliefs of our ancestors. The bad news is what we attract are those belief codes that have a relationship to the belief codes we already have in our past life archives. So they're going to be belief codes that our ancestors had that are very similar, in some cases exactly the same as the belief codes that we ourselves created in the past, or they support, they're very complementary of the belief codes in the past. When a past life, current life circumstances trigger our subconscious mind to awaken, to check our belief code inventory and periodically awaken belief codes based on what's going on in the moment in our current lifetimes. The codes are like a rule book of how to navigate life. And so when for whatever situational reasons your subconscious mind chooses to open up one of those files and allow one of those belief codes to become what I call active, once a past life code becomes active, it will cause a ripple effect and almost always activate 1, 2, sometimes 10. I've seen one past life code activate 40 or 50 inherited codes. And the problem with that is once you wake up that kind of code content, it's very, very powerful from a manifestation standpoint. If you were to just wake up one wimpy inherited code, you're probably not immediately, maybe even not ever going to see any kind of manifestation in physical reality from that. It takes a little bit more fuel, let's say, to really take those codes and turn them into manifest reality. So it takes complementary codes that support the first one. It takes emotional charge to fuel the codes. And so again, we wake up belief codes every single day that don't necessarily turn into anything. They just go back in the closet. But you trigger one past life belief code and you're going to set up a cascade, literally in most cases, of inherited codes that then give the whole mass just an amazing amount of manifestation power to start attracting life circumstances, altering your life circumstances immediately, and that adjustment will not be to your favor. So we don't want these things at all because we don't want them activating. So I'm going to teach you a really simple technique that really anybody can do if you know how to do basic dowsing. I call it tracking collective trauma hotspots, and here's how it goes. This is just one way you could tackle belief codes, past life codes. You want to come up with many ways because you're going to need a variety of methods, but this one will serve you well and it will help you clear some codes right away. So what do? You start by asking a basic dowsing question. I've typed it out here for you. Have I had any past lifetimes where large numbers of people suffered or died as a result of a major environmental change, natural catastrophe, or other major trauma event? What you're hunting for here is very specific past life experiences of yours where at the same time you were alive there was a major trauma event that you and other people were exposed to. And those big trauma events are very easy to extract belief codes from, to figure out what belief codes might have formed at that time. Because the events are recorded, there's some kind of evidence of the events. It might be something in print, it might be something in old ancient Egyptian records, it might be archaeological evidence, but there will be records. We can go back thousands of years and have some kind of record of big trauma events that were likely to have affected large percentages of the human species. So if you were on the planet at that time, you were probably affected by the event. And we can guess with just logical reasoning and intuitive guessing what your thoughts might have been at that time. And your thoughts would have translated, not all your thoughts, but many of your thoughts would have turned into belief codes. And I'll show you how that would work. But you're going to first ask, did you have any lifetimes like that? If you get a yes, you're going to go on to the next question. Counting back in time from today, when was the most recent lifetime, when or where I observed collective trauma? And you're just going to get some timelines. You see, I've built a timeline down below. You might get that the most recent past lifetime was, just 100 years ago. That would probably be your most recent past lifetime. You had another trauma time, collective trauma time, 220 years ago, 670 years ago, 3,200 years ago. And you just build this trauma timeline. It can also be beneficial for you to figure out where did you live at the time. If it was 220 years ago, for example, it would be beneficial if you got 220 years ago and you knew where you lived at the time. If you lived in France or somewhere near France, that's the time of the French Revolution. That would be very, very traumatic for anyone living in France, for sure. So sometimes the collective trauma is very regional or in a small area, but affecting huge percentages of the population in that area. That can be valuable to know. Sometimes age can be good to know. How old were you? Anyway, we're not going to address the age thing right this moment. So we're going to move on. What do you do from there? Once you know when the trauma hotspots were, you need to find out what was the trauma. You need to figure out what was the trauma you were exposed to. And you just can do an internet search for that. Use our modern technology for that. Just type in, let's say we take the first marker on the timeline 100 years ago, and you just type into the search engine, major trauma event, 100 years ago. And up will come, because I've done it, boom, 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 with this particular date line. What will come up is World War I. That was the major, gigantic, probably the biggest and most major trauma event that happened 100 years ago. And if that comes up and you see World War I, you're just going to douse, is this the trauma event that I was exposed to? Is this the biggest trauma event that I was exposed to and that so many other people were exposed to in my lifetime 100 years ago? The answer will be yes. And you go, okay, the next step is learn more about the event. If you don't know anything about the event, learn a lot more about it. But most of us know about World War I, but I bet you don't know a lot of the trauma details, not 100 years later. So go in and read just a little bit about it. Now, I'm not talking about researching for months or weeks or even days. Just read 10 minutes on Wikipedia and just read what were some of the things that people dealt with during World War I. And you're going to get a lot of clues in that reading as to, this sounds kind of creepy, but we're looking for clues about the type of trauma. How were people suffering? Because it's the suffering that's going to be the trigger that would cause someone to craft a belief code. A belief code is a judgment about an experience we're having. And I'll show you an example of what some of the common judgments would be in a situation like World War I. So you're going to use intuitive guessing and this knowledge that you've gleaned with a little bit of reasoning, a little bit of reading, and intuitive guessing and logical reasoning to just literally guess what the thoughts or the belief code that eventually became belief codes would have been. And you're going to douse your guesses until you guess it right. So here's an example. common traumatic experiences in World War I, setting aside dying and getting injured in the war itself, and that might get onto your list. You certainly would want to investigate that. Was I actually fighting in World War I? Was I a soldier? Was I injured? That type of thing. But other things that were common to millions of people during World War I was death or suffering for lack of food. There was a huge food shortage in many areas during World War I. Millions, literally millions of people died of starvation. So hunger might be associated in your past memory with war. So war and hunger become equivalents. Anytime the belief code you see down below is if I'm at war, and because we're at war, or if I'm at war, I won't have enough food. That's what registers in the subconscious system, or in the memory system, I'll say, is that here I am experiencing war, and here's what I've learned from this experience, is that when you're in war, you're going to be hungry. Now, that's not universally true, but you're going to log that as a truth for you at the moment, and it's going to become kind of universally true for you lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. If you experience war, or anything you interpret as war, you are going to experience some of these other things, like loss of food, or not having enough food to eat, not having enough supplies, possibly not having enough money, etc. So we get into the present lifetime, and you say, well, let's say you douse that, well, actually, I do have these codes, but I have plenty of food. My cupboards are fully stocked. How could this be affecting me? Well, if the code has ever awakened, it would affect you. But the effect might not be literal, like it was a literal duplication of the experience from the past. When belief codes open, when they activate, they're like blueprints for your life experiences. If they stay active long enough, and if you trigger any inherited codes along with that are similar, and then you drive up some emotional response, some emotional activity in there, you're going to basically generate life experiences that match the letter of the code. So in this case, the code is, if you're at war, you're going to go hungry. But you're saying, well, I've never experienced that. I've always had plenty of food in my life, blah, 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 blah. Well, there are adaptations. So for example, the word war won't remain war as in like World War I, or technically a war. War can become any form of battle, any form of conflict, major conflict that you're experiencing in your current life. Food, the word food, or the idea of food, can adapt to things like fulfillment. You say, well, how does food get to fulfillment? Well, lack of food is lack of a full belly, right? So food can warp to not having enough food, can warp to not having fullness, and that can warp to not having fulfillment. So war can warp, the idea of war in a current lifetime can warp to adaptations like any form of major conflict, food, money, those other elements of the original code can warp to other things too. So a real life example would be, you get in a conflict situation with your next door neighbor over a fence that you built that he doesn't like. And you've been battling, we'd use the word battling, back and forth. Now, you don't have guns, you're not trying to kill each other, no one's actually getting injured, but your subconscious mind is aware that this is going on. And there's some negative emotional charge that's gotten revved up on that. And so your subconscious mind starts checking the rules on battling. And it makes the adaptation, or it connects the dots, battle, or conflicts of any major type equals war. And it opens up the files, your known memory of war. And it pulls these files on World War I. And it says, well, let's see. Here, what are the rules of war? She's in a war. What are the rules of war? Well, when in a war, you're going to experience lack of food. And if there's enough charge on that, and you, again, open up enough inherited codes or other codes to support that, you're going to begin manifesting exactly what that code says. So I'm in a battle. You're not really, but your subconscious mind doesn't get it. It thinks you're in a war. I'm in a battle, and therefore I will experience lack of food. So overnight, you might start feeling less enthused about your job, feeling a general lack of fulfillment in your marriage, things like this. I see this happen. I've done hundreds of thousands of past life and millions of just general overall past life, inherited, and present life code decryptions, and connected what the experiences look like based on what the letter of the code is. And it's just absolutely fascinating to see how these things play out to the letter. Food may have become equivalent to money. So food often is equivalent to bread at a subconscious level, because bread is such a main staple and has been in so many of our past lifetimes. So you wake up a code that involves lack of food, and food will almost always translate to lack of bread. Lack of bread will translate to lack of money, even if you actually didn't have any kind of lack of money in the past life experience. In this lifetime, it very easily could adapt to lack of money, because we use the phrase, do you have enough bread? Meaning, do you have enough money? It's one of our exchange words for money. So you wake up, again, you start this funny fight with the neighbor. It's not so funny, but you start the little skirmish with the neighbor, and all of a sudden, and you may not connect the dots right away, but what's caused, you all of a sudden start having either a drop in your income or an increase in expenses that cause you not to have enough money. Because once the code activates, and once it collects enough support in the form of other codes and emotional fuel, it will manifest to the letter in your life experience, period. It will do that one way or the other. So how do you clear this stuff? How do you get out of harm's way with this? If you douse, well, gosh, as a matter of fact, I do have these codes. By the way, the codes that I'm discussing today, if you ever had any past life experience where you were involved, this would be another great dowsing question. Have I ever had any past life experience where I was directly involved in major war activities, or observed other people that were suffering significantly because of war activities in their area? Do I have any past life backgrounds like that? And you may find that you have other time periods. You may not have had a past life background during World War I, but you may have a past life in 1200 years ago where there was warring going on, and you may have crafted very similar codes. With war, which is a major trauma event, whenever it occurs, it's very common to have death, injury, obviously, a lack of food, a lack of supplies, a lack of resources in general, and money. It might be gold in the past, or silver, that type of thing. But it would be a lack of the currency of the time, that type of thing. So check to see if you have any old war periods and use this same formula. These same exact codes are likely to have been crafted at those times. And you can wipe those out with this next little step that I'm going to share with you. How do you clear the codes? Once you know what the codes are, basically what they are, all you need to do, it is so simple, is you simply have a chat with your subconscious mind. It has checked records in your memory system to evaluate a current event. And the records are inaccurate, and it doesn't understand that the records are inaccurate. It just it makes no judgment about the relevance of our past records as they play out in relationship to our current lifetime. Makes no judgments whatsoever as to relevance. So you're going to instruct the subconscious that those past records about that war, meaning World War I or whatever war you find, subconscious, though that's past history and it's not relevant to what's happening to me today. The conflicts and battles, then I can see how you might misinterpret that, but the conflicts and battles that I'm experiencing today, or that I'm observing others experience today, are not going to kill me. It's not going to cause me great suffering, bodily harm. I'm not going to lose loved ones. That's not the type of battles and conflicts that I'm experiencing now. So don't reference these rules again. They're completely irrelevant and they're not useful to me at this time. And your little system, think of yourself as a computer, your little system will stop referencing those rules when conflict, battle, etc. comes up. Anything it has equated to war. The other thing I like to do, just as kind of a capper to ensure that the subconscious mind really gets that that's an inaccurate evaluation, an inaccurate or inappropriate thing, a set of ideas to apply to our current situation, I'll load into myself a truthful statement about the situation as a whole, a universally true statement. So here is the truth about this situation. I can, and you can, for that matter. If you've ever had any past lifetimes that involved war, or perhaps you were even involved in war activities, real war activities, that we would technically say this is war. Maybe you went to Vietnam, maybe you went some, Iraq or whatever. I can engage, here's the truth, I can engage in war, any type of war, or conflict, any type of conflict, and still have enough or still have plenty of anything I desire. That is a true statement. It is possible. That's all you need to do with belief codes, is you load in the antidote. Once you kind of get the old code out of the way, you want to load in a truthful statement. So your system stops making the same mistake, and make a truthful statement. It is true that anyone could experience war and still have plenty of money, of food, of, not lose any loved ones, that type of thing. How do we know that that's a possibility in the human experience? Because many people have gone through wars and never suffered food shortages or death or injury or a lack of resources, lack of supplies, never lost a loved one. It's very possible, because it's been done, for people to go through a war situation without losing anything. So it can't be a universal law that experiencing war automatically leads to all these other limiting ideas that we experience in that one lifetime or those two lifetimes. And that's all we're trying to communicate and clear up in our subconscious operating system. So there you have it. That's called tracking collective traumas, and it's a very powerful, very, very effective way to clear past life belief codes. So get to work with that, see what you can find, have fun with it. If you want to dive deeper and learn more methods on how to clear past life codes, sign up for my upcoming Clearing Past Life Belief Codes workshop. It's a 4-hour intensive, and we're going to cover tons of techniques for clearing past life codes. So talk to you then. Bye-bye.